Princess Beatrice, often viewed as one of the quieter, more diplomatic royal figures, is suddenly at the center of escalating palace drama. After overseeing renovations on her countryside annex, it now appears the space was intended not for guests, but for her mother, Sarah Ferguson. Ferguson's choice to rely on Beatrice, rather than flee to Portugal as originally expected, raises urgent questions about what kind of role Beatrice is now expected, or willing, to play in her mother's volatile new chapter. This new arrangement places Ferguson within immediate reach of royal circles, but without formal inclusion. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. With Andrew increasingly isolated and Ferguson estranged and publicly floundering, her proximity to Beatrice might serve as a form of reputational cover or even emotional stabilization. But it also brings Ferguson closer to royal oversight, possibly a subtle containment effort by the palace as they brace for potential media storm. Whatever the intent, this move has shifted the stakes in the Windsor family's ongoing efforts to manage scandal and loyalty under intense public scrutiny. Sarah Ferguson just pulled one of the most dramatic U-turns in recent royal memory. And no, it's not a metaphor. The Duchess of York, who not long ago was reportedly preparing to pack her bag for Portugal, has done a full reversal. Now, she's setting up shop near Princess Beatrice in the Cotswolds, and this isn't some quaint mother-daughter bonding story. It's a calculated move with serious implications. For her, for Prince Andrew, and for the entire royal family. Let's not pretend this decision was about country air and cozy weekends. Ferguson's sudden pivot away from the Portugal plan has come at a time when her position within the royal ecosystem is more fragile than ever. With Prince Andrew effectively erased from public royal life, stripped of his titles, duties, and dignity, Sarah's long-standing proximity to him has gone from awkward to toxic. And for a woman who spent years trying to reframe her public image, this shift in strategy feels like a last-ditch play for relevance, control, and self-preservation. The move to Beatrice's annex doesn't just offer shelter, it offers proximity. Proximity to the family, to the institution, and more importantly, to the narrative. Ferguson may not hold a title anymore. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. But she knows better than anyone how much power comes from simply being near the action. And with Beatrice, arguably the least scandal-prone figure in the royal lineup, offering that proximity, it's hard not to see this as a strategic placement, not just a familial gesture. Beatrice herself has always managed to stay on the safe side of the Windsor drama. Polite, low profile, and largely unbothered by the chaos that swallowed so many others. But with her newly renovated annex now seemingly hosting her mother, she's become part of the story, whether she wants to be or not. And the timing couldn't be more sensitive. Because Sarah Ferguson isn't just a royal adjacent, she's a potential threat. Not in the scandal-starting, headline-grabbing kind of way we've seen with others, but in the way only someone on the inside can be. She knows the dynamics. She knows the history. She knows what people don't say out loud. And reports now suggest she may be preparing to share it all in a lucrative, no-holds-barred interview. Likely in the United States. Likely for a big payday. And definitely not with palace approval. This isn't the first time Ferguson's flirted with oversharing. She's built a post-royal media identity on being unfiltered and emotional. But what makes this moment different is the context. Her proximity to Beatrice gives her a certain perceived legitimacy, a way to tether herself back to the royal structure without being formally part of it. And for the palace, that's a logistical nightmare, because this arrangement, it cuts both ways. On one hand, the royals can keep a close eye on her, control the damage, quietly influence what she does next. But on the other, they are also offering her a front row seat, and that seat comes with visibility. If Ferguson decides to talk, whether in a sit-down interview or through subtle media moves, she won't be doing it as a woman in exile. She'll be doing it as a woman still connected to the family, still living inside the royal bubble, still positioned to raise eyebrows. And here's where things get more complicated. The fracture between Ferguson and Andrew. For decades, their strange post-divorce relationship was one of the more baffling constants of royal life. They lived together, vacationed together, publicly supported one another. But now, that bond seems to be unraveling. According to reports, Andrew is angry and distant. The stress of his scandal, the loss of his titles, and his complete fall from public grace have allegedly pushed a wedge between them. Ferguson, for her part, has reportedly been distressed and emotionally detached. Some sources even claim she's been drinking more heavily and withdrawing from what was once a carefully curated codependency. That unraveling changes the equation entirely. For years, Ferguson could lean on the fact that her closeness to Andrew granted her a kind of informal status. She was part of the furniture, not officially royal, but always around. Now, with that connection fracturing, she's being forced to reassess her role and her options. Her move to Beatrice's estate feels like the start of a new phase, one where she's seeking not just physical safety, but strategic positioning. She's not running from the royal family. She's inching closer. But this time, without Andrew as a shield, she's navigating solo, and that makes her both more vulnerable and more volatile. The palace, meanwhile, is reportedly treating this very carefully. Allowing Ferguson to settle near Beatrice might seem like a sign of support, but insiders suggest it could also be a containment move. Keeping her close allows the royals to monitor her, to minimize the fallout of any public disclosures, and, if necessary, to intervene before things spiral. Because there's a very real concern that Ferguson might go public in a way the palace can't control. Her association with Jeffrey Epstein, even if indirect, still hangs over her. Leaked emails, resurfaced photos, awkward statements. It's all part of the cloud that continues to follow her. And if she decides to speak out about her side of that story, or Andrew's, or the palace's efforts to keep everything under wraps, the result could be devastating. This is why her move isn't just logistical, it's political. It signals her intent to stay in the mix, to remain near the center of power, to remind the institution that she hasn't disappeared, that she still holds cards, and that she's not afraid to play them. It also underscores just how fragile the monarchy's internal structure really is right now. For years, the institution operated on loyalty, spoken or not, but those old loyalties are shifting. Ferguson's distancing from Andrew, her creeping closeness to Beatrice, and her growing media flirtations all point to a royal family that's no longer able to keep its players aligned. And if she does go through with the interview, all bets are off. Because it wouldn't just be about Ferguson defending herself. It would be about her framing the narrative, claiming agency, rewriting her legacy on her own terms, and potentially taking others down in the process. The palace knows this. They've seen what one interview can do. And with Sarah Ferguson, it wouldn't take much. A few pointed comments, a couple of vague references, the mere suggestion of things left unsaid. That alone could dominate headlines for weeks. So here we are, Sarah Ferguson, once again in the headlines, not for scandal, but for a move. A quiet, propane-fueled annex upgrade that has the entire royal operation on edge. She's close enough to feel part of the family again, but also close enough to disrupt it if she chooses. She's not running to Portugal. She's planting herself in the countryside, watching, waiting, maybe plotting. Because in the royal world, silence is often louder than words. And right now, Ferguson's silence is screaming. If you're still following this wild royal saga, now's your moment. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories unraveling the drama, spin, and spectacular mess of pop culture's biggest players. Trust us, this one isn't over. Not even close. Sarah Ferguson has made her move, but not the one anyone was expecting. What was shaping up to be a quiet exit to Portugal has transformed into something much more loaded, a calculated re-entry into the royal sphere. And no one, least of all the palace, seems ready for what that actually means. She's not fleeing to Lisbon. She's not going off the grid. She's settling into the Cotswolds, right in the newly renovated annex at Princess Beatrice's estate. And while the official line might be something vague about family support and privacy, let's be honest, this is all the markings of a chess move. Strategic, quiet, and brimming with unspoken implications. At face value, it might look like a mother staying close to her daughter during uncertain times. But the reality is so much heavier. This is a woman whose longtime partner, personal and political, is unraveling in front of the entire world. Prince Andrew, once her greatest ally and buffer, has become a liability even she can't afford to cling to. The scandal that swallowed him has left her exposed. Her reputation is threadbare. Her options are shrinking. And now, she's anchoring herself not to Andrew, but to Beatrice. Let's not forget, Ferguson doesn't have a formal royal title anymore. She hasn't for decades. She doesn't have official duties, patronages, or a permanent residence inside the royal estate. After years of holding on to her post-divorce proximity to Andrew as a kind of soft power, that connection has finally lost its value, and possibly its function altogether. And the fallout has forced her to pivot hard, fast, and under intense scrutiny. The move to Beatrice's annex is no accident. Beatrice has long been considered the most low-drama royal. She doesn't make headlines, she doesn't spark feuds, and she's rarely seen making political or emotional statements. She's viewed as calm, moderate, and stable, exactly the kind of presence Ferguson needs to tether herself to right now. That's what makes this shift so compelling. Ferguson is aligning herself with the safest royal brand available. But it goes deeper than optics. Sources say the renovations to the annex were extensive, updates that suggest long-term planning, not a temporary stay. And propane deliveries? That's not the kind of detail that screams visiting mom. It screams permanent setup. She's not just popping in for tea. She's putting down roots. Quietly, strategically, and without palace fanfare. It's the kind of move that's equal parts survival and leverage. Because while the palace might be breathing a sigh of relief that she's not jetting off to Portugal to do who knows what on foreign soil, they're also painfully aware of what she might do from right here in the UK. Especially if the rumors about a US interview are true. Yes, the word is that Ferguson has been exploring a major sit-down interview. The kind that comes with a check and a global platform. The kind that turns a struggling narrative into a redemption arc, or a wildfire. And if she goes through with it, the stakes could not be higher. She's already tied to Andrew's scandal by association, but there's also the Epstein factor. Her name has come up. Her emails have surfaced. Her closeness to Andrew has kept her squarely in the gray zone, never directly implicated, but never fully cleared either. And in an age where the public appetite for royal accountability has never been more intense, the idea of Sarah Ferguson going off-script is giving the palace collective indigestion. It's not just about what she might say. It's about how unpredictable she's always been. Sarah is known for being emotionally raw, unfiltered, and occasionally indiscreet. She doesn't stick to talking points. She doesn't do media training. She talks like someone who has nothing left to lose, and that's exactly what makes her dangerous. And yet, she's also someone who deeply craves relevance, visibility, control over her narrative. She doesn't want to be sidelined. And moving into Beatrice's estate puts her back within touching distance of the royal circle, just close enough to feel like she's still part of the conversation. Even if the palace doesn't want her speaking, they definitely don't want her speaking from across the ocean. Keeping her within range is the only way to manage the risk, or at least try to. It's containment, plain and simple. The palace might not say it out loud, but this move to the Cotswolds solves two problems at once. It keeps Sarah under a kind of unofficial surveillance, and it avoids the optics of banishing her outright. She's not being exiled, she's just being watched. Of course, that raises a whole new issue, the strain this puts on Beatrice. Because as much as she loves her mother, and all signs point to Beatrice being a loyal daughter, hosting someone as controversial as Sarah Ferguson comes with serious baggage. Beatrice has spent years cultivating a clean, drama-free image. She doesn't court attention. She's married, has a young child, and mostly shows up to family events without making headlines. Her decision to offer her mother a place to stay could very well be a personal gesture, but it's also one that risks dragging her into the very chaos she's managed to avoid her entire life. If Sarah decides to go public, Beatrice gets pulled in by default, not because she's involved, but because of where Sarah is living. Suddenly, Beatrice's name gets thrown around in conversations about Epstein, Andrew, and palace dysfunction. And that's the last thing the firm wants right now, another scandal by association. And let's not overlook the timing of all this. The royal family is still dealing with a long tail of Andrew's disgrace, not to mention the ongoing recalibration of roles since the Queen's passing. Charles is trying to streamline the monarchy, reduce costs, and preserve the institution's image in the modern era. Ferguson's public presence? Not exactly part of that plan. So, The idea of her doing a press tour, potentially unleashing a second wave of scandal, is more than just a PR headache. It's an existential threat to a monarchy already walking a tightrope. And Ferguson knows it, which is precisely why she hasn't left. Staying close gives her options. It gives her leverage. It keeps the palace just nervous enough to watch their next move. Because if they push her too far, she talks. If they freeze her out entirely, she flips the narrative. But if they let her linger quietly on the edges, like she's doing now in Beatrice's annex, maybe, just maybe, they can keep the dam from breaking. But the cracks are showing. Her decades-long alliance with Andrew is in tatters. Their once solid partnership has reportedly devolved into cold distance and quiet fury. And without him as a personal firewall, Ferguson is now having to fend for herself in a royal ecosystem that no longer has a place for her. Which is why this next chapter matters so much. Ferguson isn't making headlines for new scandals, yet, but she's also not retreating. She's staying close, staying present, and very possibly staying ready to tell the story on her terms. Whether she actually follows through with the interview is still unclear, but the mere possibility is enough to keep the palace uneasy, because if she does it, there's no going back. It will change how she's seen, how Andrew is remembered, and how the royal family navigates one of the most sensitive scandals in its modern history. So, no, this isn't just about moving into a guest house. This is about power, proximity, and the slow, quiet unraveling of one of the longest-standing unofficial alliances in the royal family. Ferguson may have lost her titles, her standing, her shield, but what she hasn't lost is her story. And whether the palace likes it or not, she still holds a pen. Sarah Ferguson isn't going anywhere. That's a message, loud and clear. And no amount of palace side-eye, quiet distancing, or back-channel diplomacy has changed that. Because now, instead of disappearing to the beaches of Portugal or retreating into silence like they may have hoped, she's parked herself right back in the royal family's peripheral vision. And she's not blinking. The annex at Beatrice's Cotswolds estate isn't just real estate. It's symbolism. Ferguson's made a career out of survival, sometimes graceful, sometimes chaotic, but always determined. And this latest move? It's pure strategy. She's no longer protected by the illusion of unity with Andrew. Their partnership, once weirdly solid despite everything, has reportedly frayed beyond repair. Years of public loyalty, cohabitation, and mutual defense have crumbled under the weight of scandal, disgrace, and emotional burnout. Andrew has been stripped of every last remnant of royal prestige, and with it, the protective barrier Ferguson leaned on for decades is gone. The dynamic has shifted. He's furious. She's unraveling, and neither of them are where they used to be. Ferguson has always known how to read a room, even if she doesn't always follow its rules. She's seen how the palace deals with threats, silence, distance, erasure, but she's also seen what noise can do. And right now, her presence, her positioning, her ability to speak, or not speak, is the only card she has left, and she's holding it very close. There's something unsettling about how quiet it's all been. No official statements, no firm denials, just whispers of annex renovations, propane deliveries, and a duchess in quiet transition. But make no mistake, silence doesn't equal insignificance. It equals suspense. The kind of pause that comes before something bigger. Because Ferguson isn't just lying low. She's re-establishing herself within reach of the firm's infrastructure, just enough to matter, just enough to be monitored. And then there's the interview. The possibility that won't go away. A tell-all, no-filter, cash-heavy American media exclusive that could blow the lid off the fragile truth she's maintained with the monarchy. The palace knows it. She knows it. And every day that she doesn't speak feels like a kind of negotiation in itself. The idea that she's quietly being contained through Beatrice's hospitality isn't far-fetched. Hosting Ferguson may be a personal choice for Beatrice, but it's also convenient for the palace. It keeps Ferguson accessible, close enough to influence, far enough to distance. But containment only works if the person being contained cooperates. And Ferguson's track record? Not exactly a blueprint for subtle compliance. This move to the Cotswolds, this seemingly soft landing, could very well be the start of a larger game. She's not leaking headlines. Yet. But the threat hangs in the air. Because if the palace crosses her, if she feels cornered, ignored, or discarded again, she could easily flip the script, and the story she could tell would be heard around the world. It's not just about Andrew. It's not just about Epstein. It's about decades of backroom drama, personal betrayals, image management, and the deep dysfunction that royal PR only ever partially conceals. Ferguson's been around for it all. And while she's made plenty of her own missteps, she's also endured what the monarchy throws at the women it can't fully control. Now she's playing her own endgame, without the shield of Andrew, without a title, but with knowledge, with access, and with a kind of messy, complicated legacy that the palace would really prefer stayed behind closed doors. So the question remains, is she staying silent out of loyalty or leverage? We're about to find out. And if you want to keep following this royal fallout as it unfolds, go ahead and hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe. Because whatever Sarah Ferguson does next, it won't be quiet, and it won't be forgettable.